Art. It's something we see every day in so many different forms, from TV shows, music, and other entertainment, to just the designs on what we wear. By show of hands, can you all say, how many of you would say you're an artist? How many wouldn't? Yeah, it's definitely a majority, yeah. In society, it seems that artists seem to be a minority. Whether you're in classrooms, workplaces, or other spaces, there seems to be a strange lack of those who identify as an artist. But I personally do, but definitely not the kind that would chop off their earlobe or, give a speech like this flawlessly. I made this observation while I was in my 4th period thinking, what am I going to do for this TED Talk assignment? This is dumb. But it made me think a lot about myself and what discouraged me at the beginning. It wasn't necessarily a lack of skill. Anyone can get better with practice. But for me, a lot of people seem to glorify the troubled artist, and that's what discouraged me. I often thought to myself that if I wasn't like them, how could I ever be great? The concept of the link between mental illness and creativity has been a confusing topic throughout all of history. Plato once said, madness, provided it comes as the gift of heaven, is the channel by which we receive the greatest blessings. Madness comes from God, whereas sober sense is merely human. Plato, as you all know, was a genius himself, maybe even had a few screws loose. But we can't say for sure. In an article by Adrienne Sussman, she states that as measures of creativity, output, and even mental illness are by definition vague, and that finding a specific correlation between them is really difficult due to this. But according to the same article, it stated that manic depressive disorder and schizophrenia do appear to be more prevalent in artistic minds. But this raises the difficult question: how are we to ethically treat these illnesses? If there's a correlation between these traits, how would it affect those who, dare I say, benefit from their mental illness and their art? Would it permanently change the way that they view the world? It's a difficult moral issue. In a survey from 2006, 100 people participated to find out if there was a significant correlation between participants who suffered from a mental illness and were also artists. Out of the 100 participants, only 31 considered artwork their main source of income, and only 15 in total admitted to receiving professional mental health treatment for specific ailments. 4 for bipolar disorder, 4 for depression and anxiety, 4 for drug-induced psychosis, and 1 for an eating disorder. 5 reported getting treatment but didn't even specify what for. And 4 didn't even answer the question. But it's an extremely interesting study. Only about 30% of participants even said that they were a professional artist, and even less so said that they had treatment for a mental illness. As much as it may not be definitive, it does show a drastic contrast as to what we think of an artist. Another example from that article, it's reported that schizophrenia appears to have what's called an inverted U shape with creativity. It's an interesting observation, one that brings up the point that creativity and mental illness aren't all black and white concepts. Schizophrenia, like many other mental conditions, functions on a spectrum. Everyone's experience with it is different. Whether they use it for an art form is purely up to the people suffering from it. However, there are some traits that artistic minds and ill minds do still have in common. One described in the article is reduced latent inhibition. It's a trait of the brain that affects the way that you respond to familiar stimulus. Think of it like this. You've seen a book or a movie, and how many times? But every single time, it's just like you've read it for the first time. It's so good. For me, that would be the Kung Fu Panda trilogy. You keep wanting more, maybe even to the point where you write your own stories about this world that you read about. I'm sure all of you have that Kung Fu Panda trilogy. Of course, you have a favorite book or movie. But have you ever thought it like when you were young, or if you're a parent watching your own children grow? You watch them or yourself as little babies spin these incredibly fascinating stories about their toys or other playthings. But as we grow older, this natural creativity seems to fade away in the normal individual. That's why this unique brain function is prevalent in both mentally ill and artistic minds. Whether it causes psychosis or creative thinking is commonly based off of the individual's intelligence. This proves that there are multiple causes for creativity, not purely just mental illness. Though they have similar effects, it's not definitive that they're directly related. In another study, this time from 2007, it was revealed that all participants that pursued visual or audible art, as well as writers, had a history of creativity in the family. And those who had children also reported that their children also pursued an artistic hobby or career. Whether this is a hereditary trait or if it's a result of the environment a child grows up in can't be said clearly. This begs the question, can one lead a peaceful and pleasant life and still have hopes of being innovative? This article brings up many examples that challenges the stereotype that all artists are troubled, and states that while a great deal of attention has been paid to the dysfunctional creative individual, the healthy creative person is barely represented in the literature. Along with this, our glorification of artists puts aside the priority for help. Some people don't even know the extent to which some artists wanted help so badly and tried to get it. One of Vincent van Gogh's most revered paintings is a painting of one of his doctors that treated him while he was in an asylum in South France. The media constantly raves about artists with deeply flawed minds, ones that make them suffer for the rest of their lives, and paints it out to be the reason that they're so brilliant. But there are so many others who've lived incredibly fulfilled lives and still created beautiful pieces. William Shakespeare, Duke Ellington, and our favorite, Bob Ross, are really good examples of this. We need to stress that brilliancy in art comes in many different forms. Art itself is a beautifully flexible practice, and it can come out in many ways. We may think of societal norms as being simply fashion and body types. However, it stretches more than that. We've been conditioned to think that artists are one thing, and one thing only, but that simply isn't true. Art can be expressed by anyone, whether it be visual, musical, or any other method. The glorification of the troubled artist prevents many people from pursuing a healthy artistic hobby, one that could benefit your own mental health. We, as a society, need to give more freedom to the word art. We need to grow to support more artistic individuals more and allow for more and more people to indulge in creativity. Encouraging young people to take band or orchestra in school especially. It's one of the few subjects that are taught in schools that can make both sides of your brain work at the same time. This encouragement will help many young artists like myself grow more and become even more skilled so that our world around us can change more and grow more colorful than ever. And remember, we don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents.